Okay, so here's the Lanterman Developmental Disabilities Service Act and related laws. If you're a parent of a disabled child at any age, I mean a child or an adult, because the Lanterman Act covers them through life, that means even if they're an adult, they're still entitled to services. Yeah, remember that. Yeah, the Lanterman Act is not just for children under 18. Okay. Okay, so anyway, we have here section 4501, and it talks about the state of California accepts responsibility for persons with developmental disabilities and has an obligation to them which it must discharge, affecting hundreds of thousands of children and adults directly. Okay, adults. See the word adult there? Yeah, that means adults are also entitled to the services. That is further corroborated when we see this. An array of services and supports should be established which is sufficiently complete to meet the needs and choices of persons with developmental disabilities, regardless of age. Regardless of age. Yeah, that means if they're 70, 50, 30, over 18, they're still entitled to the services and supports. Okay, let's just make that real clear. Some people don't understand that. Yeah, it's odd, but you know, what are you gonna do? Who knows what's going on in their head? MRI time. The legislator finds that the mere existence or the delivery of services and supports in itself insufficient evidence of program effectiveness. You betcha. Remember that one. There's also another one that we'd like to remember. Now, we did see the other laws there about the, age, at any age they're entitled to services. And then here we have an Article 4, services and supports for persons. Okay, and then down here, it goes in, people like to play games with words sometimes. And they like to twist it and use other legal language to justify their twisting of the words, which is really manipulative and weird. But I guess that's how these people roll. So, I'm learning how they operate more and more every time. It is a case study in human psychology, I'll tell you that. Yeah. So, for instance, there's some people that are under the impression, even though you see in other, pages of the law, that adults are entitled to services, some people, very few, thank God, misinterpret this one section where it talks about children getting services. Okay, apparently, there's some people that forget that a child with a developmental disability, just like any child who's non-disabled, is always somebody's child. So whether that child is 18, 19, 14, 88, and they're still living with their parent, they're still a child. Okay, that's just pretty basic. And corroborates and correlates with the rest of the law, that's talking about you don't discriminate against disabled based on their age. Okay? You just don't. Otherwise, if you really thought about it, if you misinterpreted the Lanterman Act to think that it only served people under 18, then you would have to kick all the people over 18 who are living at home with their parents basically off the regional center system, right? Like they wouldn't be entitled to jack shit, right? Like they wouldn't get respite at home. They wouldn't get a damn thing, right? I mean, is that what these people are saying? I'm a little confused. Okay. So, yeah, there are some people that like to twist words and then use other language and say, we're going to talk about the true meaning of words, even though they're actually manipulating the very words that they're telling you they're not manipulated by quoting other laws that say something about the meaningfulness of words. It's masterfully done and crazy, and in my opinion, would justify somebody being put on a 5150 hold at that point and probably thrown out of the whole system. But that's just my opinion, right? And I'm entitled to it because I'm the mother. And you're affecting me, and I am aggrieved. I am deeply aggrieved at how my son's civil rights are often violated in this system by people who are quite pernicious and not very intelligent. And I don't know if it's willful or if it's just general obtuseness. Now, if it is general obtuseness, I'm sorry. No disrespect, seriously. But if you're doing this willfully and you're playing games with my son's life, F you. Seriously, no way will I let that go. I'll come for you. I'll come for your system. I mean, legally and morally, of course. Nothing. Don't even read into that. I'll come for you by exposing all the crap that you do, and try to take all necessary means and measures to combat your evil behavior, which will not and should not be tolerated by anyone in the system serving disabled. Your manipulation of words, your willful disregard for the law, your twisting and weird stuff that you do because you're trying to protect the greater cause, you want to set precedents. Nah, screw that. No. You follow the damn law. You don't twist it to make it, fit your agenda. Just follow the law. You're not fooling me. You're not fooling a lot of people. Also want to show you something else, give you a little background about my son and why I fought so hard to have him in his home that he now has on our property, which is still his home. And he is an adult and he's entitled to services in his home, just like any child would be entitled to services in his home. But I want to give you some real background here, okay? A lot of times people will think, well, the children, that's one thing to live with their parents, but when they're adults, they should be living in a group home. No, they shouldn't. No, they shouldn't. Now, if you want to put your son in a group home or daughter, good for you. Go for it. I support that. You can do it. But us? No, my son was in a group home for a few years in the past, and they left him behind a door to beat himself till he had a hematoma on his ear. And then they tried to hide the injury by putting a helmet on it and sending him to school. So I pulled him out of the group home. That was in 2009. Then in 2010, I started asking for a lot of services after that, saying, hey, wait a minute, you failed all this stuff, and I want him home now, and I want the supports he should have always had the entire time he was here. You basically forced us to place him because you didn't give us a lot of services at all, and I was like dying. So, he comes home in 2009, and then I find out the hard way that there's a little known thing in the regional center where they want you to keep telling them, they don't tell you this though, that you need to, I want to place my son, I want to place my son, I want to place my daughter. I want to place them in an out of regular home placement, a group home placement. So as soon as they're over 18, the regional centers want you to place your child, because then it doesn't become their problem anymore to provide any services at your house, even though the Lanterman Act clearly shows that your child is eligible for services at any age, regardless of their disability. Regardless. So this is what they told me. We have nothing. We have nothing. That's what they told me. Well, actually, they didn't tell me. I subpoenaed these emails. That's why I have them. Nobody told me shit. I had to subpoena them every time I took them to a fair hearing. God, they hated that. They hated me, too. Good, I don't care. I'm doing this for my son. I'm not there for a personality, profile. I don't care what you think of me. I really don't. I never have, never will. It's all about my son and getting him what he needs. I'm not there, to be on your like list. You don't like me? That's your problem. Get out of my hemisphere. I'm trying to help my son. So, they've told me there was never anything for my son. Sorry, we have nothing for James. We have nothing. They did a statewide search. Statewide, not even in the county. They searched every damn group home in the state. Nothing. Okay, 6 years later, I'm still fighting them for service at home. Okay, at home. Why he's an adult. Dear Mrs. Oakley, good morning. Because our case management staff has not been able to locate an appropriate placement option for your son at this time, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, in other words, 6 years. They still can't, sorry, we have nothing. Sorry, we have nothing. Sorry, no placement. No appropriate placement. That is why, and I want you to look at this and never forget it. You wonder why I, Kim Oakley, mother of James, fought like hell for my son to live at home with supports. Because you lying people over at the regional center were lying to judges every time I went to court. You lied to them. You lied. You would tell them over and over, we have a group home. No, you didn't. Do you remember the time you told the judge you had a group home, and then I went and investigated it, and I went and called them, and they told me, what? Your son has self-injurious behavior and seizures? The regional center didn't tell us that. Really? Well. That's how they roll. Okay, I got this one. We write that in the journal for a future book. Yeah, How the Regional Center Rolls by Kim Oakley. Please immediately stock up on the wine while you read it. And get it. I maybe even get some prescriptions ready. I mean, holy shit. If you even knew how these people operate, it's dirty. And the lies to the judges makes me sick. It always made me sick. And they still do it. They're still twisting words and twisting things and taking advantages of judges who don't. Do you know how few judges understand the Lanterman Act? They don't understand it. And the regional center knows that. They know it. And they manipulate these judges all the time. And it's sad. It's sad to see. I mean, you're looking at the judge and you're just like, oh, you just want to scream and flip over the table. You're like, damn it, this judge doesn't get it. But then there's some judges that do get it. And when they do get it, the regional center goes after them. They'll appeal it and take them to the appellate court. I mean, it's hilarious. It's like, holy mackerel, the judge is doing the right thing, interpreting the Lanterman Act correctly, and now you're going after them with all your attorneys, and you're spending all the money that you're supposed to be spending on giving some damn services to the family, on going to court to appeal decisions that another judge rightfully made at an Office of Administrative Hearing? Oh my gosh, really? You people are crazy. Crazy. I mean, really. Just think about that for a second. Oh, and by the way, sometimes the regional center will say, you know what, it's more cost effective to place an adult child with a disability in a group home. I'm like, really? Okay. Well, I got a hold of a bunch of rates. This one cracked me up. And you know how many people have serious medical issues and can't get help at home? And yet the regional centers are willing, what is this, an ARF push-in? Is that what it's called? I can't keep up with these crazy acronyms that they come up with. The regional center is willing to pay $19,000 a month for an ARF push-in for somebody with medical needs, but you're not willing to provide them with some nurses once in a while at their house? Whoa. No, that's not right. Well, I'll tell you why this works for the regional center, okay? It works because guess what happens? Guess what happens when your child is just developmentally disabled and when they're an adult and the regional center doesn't want them living at your house anymore? They try to force you to place them in an out-of-home placement. And there's various levels, and this is one of them, the ICF-DD nursing. So that regional centers love that one because the ICF-DD nursing is under the Department of Health and Human Services. So now it's not under the Department of Social Services anymore, which is level 1 through 4 homes, but they love it because they basically don't have to provide any services in your natural home anymore, which is deplorable. I mean, don't you have a right to live with your family at any age when you're a developmentally disabled human being? Yes, you do, and the law supports that. So anyone who would think differently is not interpreting the law correctly, or you're being okey-doked by whatever attorney is telling you this. So, again, so here's an example. Now, I got inside information once from a nurse working in one of these ICF-DD and facilities, And the nurse told me, this was years ago, that there was an autistic person that was put in that home. I think she was out of maybe the foster care system, or she just didn't have parents or advocates, something. But anyway, it's a very sad story. I don't know whatever happened to her, because obviously, HIPAA laws, you can't, find out exactly who the person is. I just got a general knowledge of it just because it was so upsetting to the nurse. And the nurse told me that this autistic person was heavily medicated all day long in the ICF-DDN with Klonopin, Haldol, and other things. And I said, why? Why didn't this autistic patient have like a one-to-one, like a CNA or something? And the nurse told me that they didn't want to pay the extra money. They didn't want to do anything, extra for her. And it was eventually, I think she stopped walking because they medicated her so much. And I don't know if she ever lived. It's a really interesting story. So that's what they do to people with autism a lot of times in these places, just dope them up. And that's why the regional centers don't like when people like me fight to keep my adult son at home. Never forget that.